Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Perfect Building Maintenance, M&T Bank, Customers Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Ariel Property Advisors, Sterling National Bank, Capital One Bank, Collins Building Services, Meridian Capital Group. Additional support has been provided by grants from AVR Realty Company, Amarant Bank, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, B6 Real Estate Advisors, Briarwood Organization, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Commercial Mortgage, Citizens Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handler Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Matone Group, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merengoff Family Foundation, and these friends. Family business dynamics. How is it to work in a family business? I don't know. So I've assembled this group of second, third, fourth generation family business sons, daughters, to discuss the challenges and the opportunities of working in a family business. My guests, they include Ben Levine of Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Clinton Management. His sister, Jessica Levine Sherman, of Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Clinton Management, Evan Petracker of Triangle Equities, and last but not least, Greg Calico of the Calico Group in Khaled Management. So, in a way, you're the fourth generation of a business.
Yes.
But you're really in the second generation because your father's been in business and you're his son on the business, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Evan?
Same. I'm technically the fourth, but my father split off and started his own company, so really the second.
And the two of you?
Both second generation. Our father founded our companies.
So what are the biggest challenges for each one of you to be in a family business? Because, you know, if you look at the statistics, a number of businesses transitioning from the first to the second generation, 50% of them work. Going to the third generation, 10% work. Fourth generation, they go out of business in many cases. So that's statistically, and it's in a different business. But you're in a family business in the real estate world. So what do you see as your difficulty?
Well, I guess statistically, we have less of a challenge because in our family we're the second generation, so that's a nice starting point. But I think that, you know, we're a family of very strong opinions, and you know, we've learned how important it is to have open communication, and also to kind of have a unified front publicly. You know, I think that there are a lot of times, whether it's in the office or at the high holidays where we're at the table and we might have an argument, but it's very important that, you know, we have a united front, and when we're in meetings with contractors or with finance people, that we're all on the same page.
Jess, what's your role in the business today?
I work on our affordable housing team, so we oversee the affordable housing projects in New York that we develop and construct, and we also respond to city and state RFPs.
And Ben?
I focus in on finance and acquisitions on the market rate side, and hospitality, and also project management, running some of our developments.
And Evan, your role?
I focus on operational initiatives, improving the kind of back office operations, and also, you know, kind of advising or providing guidance on some of our developments projects.
And Greg?
I work on acquisitions. I also do finance work and legal work as well, review leases, review agreements, kind of whatever needs to be done, I'm happy to do and help contribute.
So this is an open question. When you were growing up, did you ever think you'd go into the business, Evan?
No, not really. I think my father, Lester, had kind of raised all 5 of his children to go and be independent and find out what they will make them happy ultimately, not try and shepherd them into a family business. And so I came in after, working in another career previously.
I think the question of the other career helps mold what you've done, okay? I mean, part of it is the 2 of you went to Columbia for your master's over there. Some of the social policies that you gained over there help you in your area. Ben was at Wharton and then at Credit Suisse and a couple of other places have given him. Evan was at the Annapolis, okay, and then he was in the Navy for 5 years.
I went to Hofstra Law School.
Hofstra Law School. Did your parents always, in your mind, want you to be in the business?
I feel like deep down they did. However, they wanted me to really do something that I loved. And growing up, I always had the greatest amount of respect and admiration for my father and grandfather. So, although, there were other opportunities that were presented to me, and I did some legal work and clinical work at the law school, I always knew that I wanted to go into the family business because I feel like in the family business, my father and grandfather didn't really view it as they were the boss. They really viewed themselves as custodians and caretakers of what was built by my ancestors for the next generation.
That's an interesting concept. Do you agree with Greg?
I mean,
because you're 2nd generation, the 2 of them.
I think definitely something Ben and I talk about when we talk about the future of our company is certainly making sure that we help to continue our company develop on the path our father has set in terms of the kind of work we do, but we also think there's lots of opportunities to work in new spaces that we're interested in. So
what are the new opportunities? Because each one of you has expanded, or the company has expanded over the years. Douglas then Development, Levine Builders originally was a builder. Then you became a developer. You built certain apartments. Now you went into the hospitality business. You went into these large-scale developments and different type of projects. Here's a point that we brought up before. Even though your mother's not in the business, your mother's in the business, right?
Absolutely.
Your mother is like the Secretary of State, the Chief of Staff, that your father asks ideas and new projects.
And we ask her too. We all really value her input and opinions.
It's funny, I think, when we were kids, since my father was obviously a 1st-generation builder, we all made a lot of sacrifices, and I think that my mom sacrificed the most. She raised the family on Long Island, and she really, she gave up her career, and she sacrificed a significant amount for the sake of the family and the business. It's interesting, over the last 5 or 10 years, I would say that our mom, Randy, has really challenged my father and us to kind of think about the evolution of the business, and things like looking in other cities and trying to think about how we could structure our companies and evolve over time, so it's not just our father at the top and everybody, kind of creating more of a flowing and organic organization. And I think that for my dad to become the builder that he is, he could not have done it, in my mind, without my mom standing next to him the whole way and helping.
Now, you were saying that your mother raised 5 children over there.
She did, yes.
Did your mother have any involvement with the family business?
Not directly in the business, but I think, similar to what Ben's saying, just the support that she gave to my father, my mother Tracy, was just anything that needed to be done whenever, whether it was, if he needed to, deal with something, leave a family vacation early to go and, she'd pick up the pieces behind him and make sure that things were, in place.
But I think what Ben brought up, which is very important, okay, even though, as I said, you're a 4th generation, but you're really the 2nd generation. Your fathers, okay, in each case, took over and molded a different business, okay? And your mothers may have not been involved, but they were involved taking care of the growth of the 3 of you. I guess you have a sister also, okay? The 5 of you, and you have 1 sister. So your mother was involved. Certain times, the mother may be involved with the decision-making, but here it sounds like your mothers have been involved as a strength or given some input over there.
And it's also interesting to me, when you look at women CEOs, women decision makers, they're far less emotional when it comes to making the decisions. And I think that, after a stressful day where my dad could have been arguing with contractors over millions of dollars, he'd come home from the office and he could talk to my mom and they'd go through what happened, and my mom can give like our mother, unbiased opinion and really help him to make decisions.
I think my mom certainly provided that, similarly to that, but also when my father broke apart from the family business that he was in with his father, Petrack and Sons, and went into Triangle Equities. I mean, there was a lot of risk that was going on there too, and then he built a development company on his own equity, and tremendous amount of risk there. And she stood side by side with him, every single step of the way, knowing what was at stake and supporting his decisions, and saying, "Yeah, go for it."
Now, how do the other siblings in your family look at the role that you're in the business and they're not in the business? Okay, you have a cousin in the business, you have a sister who's married to a plastic surgeon who's not joining the business unless the health insurance gives them no coverage later on. Call it sibling rivalry, call it whatever it is. There's certain times I've seen it doesn't always work out.
Well, I think as far as siblings that are not in the business, when you have like my cousin Jordan and myself who are in the business, I think the key is that, for my cousin and I leading the next generation, you have to really check the egos at the door, and you have to really make sure that you are there to protect everyone in your generation. So there are my cousin has 2 siblings and I have a sibling who is uninvolved in the business. So by checking the egos at the door and doing what you believe is best for the family, it instills a level of trust in the siblings who aren't in the business, and it makes them feel like they're kind of protected.
No, I think to what you said earlier about being custodians, I think that you couldn't have said it better. I think that at the end of the day, we're a family, and it's our responsibility as a family to do everything we can to provide for our family and for our companies. And regardless of who is and who isn't in the business, you structure in a way where there's incentive for being in the business, but also as a family member, you're entitled to what you're entitled to. And I think that bring it all together, at the end of the day, we all want to win together, and that's it.
What are the biggest challenges you have being in a family business? And then I want to ask you, what do you think the best opportunities are that you're in a family business?
I think the biggest challenge, I had initially, even though I had, other experience before I joined the family business, was coming into a role where just by being a family member, you're, just automatically put into a place where you have decision-making authority, where you're advising or giving insight into something
I think,
that
but
otherwise
that's
you wouldn't
interesting
have had.
because there are people in the company who've been with your father for 15 years, and now they look at someone coming into the business who's new to the business, and they're saying, maybe I should have had that responsibility or something like that.
Yeah, I think you have to come in and demonstrate your value. You have to, it doesn't come overnight. It comes over time. I've now been involved at Triangle Equities for 5 years. I, feel that I've demonstrated some level of value, and my responsibilities have certainly increased over that period of time. But it's being humble.
But you know what? I think all of you have said the businesses have evolved. Levine Builders Douglaston Development 30 years ago was a different company. Triangle Equities had just started about 25 years ago. Your company had changed. How do they look at you with regard to new ideas and new implementation or new thoughts when you say, maybe we should go into assisted living, which your father had been into in the past. Maybe we should go into the hospitality. Maybe we should build in the South, as opposed to because what's happening in the difficulties in New York. How do they accept your comments?
I think they accept your comments and give your comments a little more credence based on your time and experience in the family business. I think if it was my first year in the family business when I joined after law school in 2011, my father may have looked at an idea that I presented maybe a little bit differently than now. It's 2019, it's 8 years later. I've developed a lot more experience. So I think that, the generation preceding us really instills a level of trust based on the amount of time and commitment you show the company.
I think also that being in a family business is a huge responsibility, and that it's our father's greatest joy when we come into a room with a good idea and the information to back it up so that he believes in it. And he's not just going to listen to our idea because it came from Ben or I. He's going to listen to an idea because it's a good idea that's well thought out and well planned. And each of us here took the time to build careers before in law school at Credit Suisse, at the Port Authority to really spend time gaining a skill set and expertise so that we would have something to contribute.
How do your parents accept when you have a suggestion which they might not agree with you?
Begrudgingly?
I think, again, if you come in the room with a suggestion, you have to have the information to back it up. You have to explain why it's the right decision for the company, and
okay,
it might not be a decision
I'll give you a
that happens
perfect
right away.
example right now, especially since what's happened in real estate. Real estate prop tech is very big today. The world is changing, latches over here. And if you look at certain people, going back to people of my year or age or like your father, they'd say, what is this with prop tech? What is this crap that you're talking about? How do they look at this when you come in with a new idea which is not related to the family business, but it's a new opportunity?
I'll tell you, look, I think that real estate is a parochial business, and I think that it's challenging at times to get, the prior generation, our fathers, to agree with our views on some of these things, but the facts are simple. In 2014, the value of real estate in the country was $40 trillion, 23 trillion of it was residential. In 2018, the value of residential real estate in New York State was 3.3 trillion, which represents like 9% of the value of the whole country. Real estate tech is a completely new asset class, in my opinion. It's a new vertical that you're laying over real estate. One of the things that I find most interesting is that the investment is coming from a lot of the families in the city that we know and that are on your show, but they're willing to put their capital in because they recognize the value upside long term, but they won't put it in their own buildings yet because they're concerned about being the first adapters and having to deal with the struggles of the technology. So it's a balance.
If I have to look at specifically the Calico Group and Calib Management, 10 years ago, there weren't the package deliveries today. Look at the e-commerce deliveries. So you've had to adapt, and a number of people in the business have adapted to, security systems, package delivery rooms, different type of products. Have your company gone into any area which is out of the real estate business or prop tech?
Well, I know you'd mentioned, moments ago, Latch. We're currently doing a development in Brooklyn, and we're installing the Latch system. And my when I presented him with the idea, said, "What is Latch? I don't really understand this." So myself, my cousin, and our partner had to sit down and explain to him the hardware versus the software and how we would install it. And after we presented a well thought out and comprehensive plan as to how we think Latch could increase the value of the building and help the tenants, he said, I think it sounds like a good idea.
Yes.
No, but I also think it's our duty to do more than just say Latch, right? So we were looking at Latch for one of our projects, and it's not just about understanding Latch. It's who are the competitors, how do they integrate into the buildings, what's the cost, how do you manage through the DOB process to get the approval, because there are all these different issues. So it's the burden is on us to prove that we not only understand it, but we can demonstrate the incremental value that it creates so that our families will be comfortable integrating the technologies into our projects.
In addition to that, look at what's happened with your dad. Your dad has been a specialist in being able to understand how to deal with municipalities.
Sure.
Okay, getting land and other things. But one of his projects, this project now Kensington, it's taken him 12 years, okay? Do you think your experience in the Navy and the Annapolis helped dealing with the people because maybe your personality of knowing how to deal with some bureaucracy or municipalities has helped?
Well, I can't take any credit for
No.
that, but I think what he has always done is surrounded himself with people that do understand those types of things, and so we have team members at Triangle who understand those processes and have been able to get them through. I think understanding one thing that the Navy has helped me with is understanding the way that to organize a company, because ultimately the Navy is just a big company, and that's something I think I brought to the company, starting to look at processes, procedures, how to kind of formalize things from a family business and make it maybe more friendly towards institutions, make it more efficiently run than maybe, I think a lot of times when family businesses are grown, they're grown and the founder is dealing with every single different decision and maybe doesn't have a chance to take a step back and focus on, can we do this better, can we make these process improvements, and is comfortable with the way of looking at things. Now, stepping into a role in the family business is kind of a new lens of looking at every single thing that's internal. So I don't know that I've lent anything externally to your point, but certainly my experience has helped us to.
How important do you believe your graduate programs, graduate with degrees, have helped in the growth of the businesses?
Yeah, I think as Evan mentioned, you bring a different perspective. When you've worked elsewhere, when you've considered different kinds of projects, the strategies you bring to the table are different, and they provide another direction that you can think about as a team and really build together the right solutions when you face new projects, new problems.
Yeah, Jess and I were actually cluster mates at Columbia Business School, and I think that doing the case studies and looking at the way that Fortune 500 and larger organizations, and looking at things from maybe a consultant, the way a consultant might in certain classes is something that you can extrapolate into even a small company and think about better ways of doing things.
So here's an interesting fact that I learned this morning, that the two of you both went to Hebrew school together, and you were 5 days apart?
We were born 5 days
Yes.
apart. I
Okay.
can't believe you remembered that.
Okay.
Of course.
You're all in family businesses, and I assume that you have friends in family businesses. What dynamics have you seen that may have hurt other businesses, not your family business? That people who went into the business and they may have left. Why have they left?
I think poor communication is the main reason people leave family businesses. You have to really have the hard discussions and make sure you're aligned and that you're understanding other people's perspectives and priorities so that you can move in the same direction together, and that when people don't see eye to eye, it can result in difficulties.
And I also think that's like, patience and humility are important, and I think that, in a lot of ways we're kind of raised to be a certain kind of person. But in order to get to that point, you have to put in the time and the work, and you have to be disciplined, and you have to be humble. And I think that, all of our families cast large shadows, and oftentimes we're in them. And it's a lot of effort to be accepting of that and try to challenge yourself to break through it.
When you're with your peers and people of your contingency, same idea, I mean, you sit down with them and you ask them, how they get along with their family. What do you see the reason that certain of the people that you mentioned early in the show may have left their family businesses?
I would say, to answer your question, the next generation would think they're larger than the family business. I would say it's a combination of ego and sense of, or overinflated sense of self-worth, where people have to realize that they're not bigger than the family business. This is something that needs to be taken care of, and you have other generations and future generations to worry about and need to see the longer term perspective. So I think some reasons why family businesses might not work out is if the next generation believes that they truly are bigger than the business.
Specifically, there have been stories, that you've read in the rags and everything in the trade about sons or basically more of the sons who've left their father and went out on their own. Certain in positive roads, and then there are certain who said, I don't even want to know my father because, I don't respect him or the others.
Look, I think that it has a lot to do with the personality, the family structure, and the corporate structure. I think that it's a lot easier as a second generation to be involved, and as you get further out, the third, fourth, fifth, who knows how many generations, there's a lot more people involved. I think with that being said, Greg, one thing that I don't necessarily agree with you on is that, like, I have friends who have family real estate businesses, and they've decided to go out on their own and do something else or do something similar but not exactly the same, and they've been very successful. And I think that it's not for everybody being in a family business. It's humbling in ways that people don't realize, and it's challenging in ways that people can't understand. But at the same time, I get to go to the office every day with my sister and my uncle and my dad and my aunts, and my mom comes by.
You have the entire family, okay?
Yeah.
It's besides the brother and sister. You have aunts, uncles, and other relatives over there. You could have had that, but your father chose a different way. But it's really difficult because it's difficult enough dealing with your own family, and then adding the extra dimension of people who have worked in the family business for many years.
But I think that's something that both Ben and Greg hit on is respect and passion, right? We're all here because we're passionate about what our fathers did and what we want to do, and we go to work every day excited about working in real estate. And we respect not just our fathers, but also the other people in the company, family and not, and we respect and appreciate their roles and what they bring to the table. And you really have to learn to work with a wide array of people. And in some ways, it is harder because you can't separate family from business. But bringing that respect to the table means that even when you disagree, you do so in a way that allows you to talk about it and keep going.
And I think that the family element is something you can't ignore it. You have to work at it. You have to be aware of it, and you have to attack it openly and honestly. I think if there's transparency there, there's a lot more chance of it being successful for multiple generations.
So here's a question, and whoever wants to answer it. Where would you like to see each one of your companies in 20 years from now, when maybe the next generation of your family might go into the business?
I nominate Jessica because she just had her first child, Orly, who's the cutest human being on the planet Earth.
Right, but where would you like to see it?
In 20 years, I hope my dad, me, Ben, and Orly are all sitting around a table talking about a project we're excited about.
She's going to be our college intern in 20 years.
Exactly.
Right, she's going to be like the picture that you had with your father on Long Beach with you at the project when he was doing development over there.
Exactly.
And you?
Kind of I guess, skirting the question a little bit, but I think it's most importantly, I think the business will take care of itself. I just want to see a happy family. That's something that's most important.
And I think that's an important thing. A happy family is very important, because if you have an unhappy family, it makes it really hard
To go to work.
grow in a family business. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Ben, Jessica, Evan, and Greg, and see you next week.
Thank
you
you.
for being here with the new set.
Thank you.
Looked
Thank you
great.
for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.